they want to. And so I said, can I make a photocopy? Because that time I was working for Xerox of Canada, and color copies had just come on the market at that time, and that's a Xerox color copy from way, way back, before all these color copies that you have all through the campus probably today. But anyway, the interesting thing about it was, did you notice the color of his skin? Dark. You notice how piercing his eyes were? I never at that time put one and one together. No, I didn't. Until I worked at a show one day, and there was a spiritual reader who I'd never seen before, and all day long she's staring at me, just staring at my booth. And I worked on several people that day, and at the end of the day, she came up to me, and she said, I just have to talk to you about something. I said, well, what is that? She said, I can see spirits. And she said, all day long, she said, your booth has been the most amazing thing I think I've ever seen. Because whoever got on the table, all their spiritual guides came with them, including yours. And then when they got off, their guides disappeared, and the next client, all their spiritual guides were with them. But your guides still remained, of course. And she said, this went on all day long. But there was one guide where if you stood on the left or the one side of the human body, this guide was standing facing you. If you were working on the feet, the guide would be working on the head. If you worked on the head, he was working on the feet. He was always facing me, she said. She said, but more dramatic than even that is, I've never seen anybody so tall. I said, what do you mean tall? She said, well, you see that exit sign? It could be that clock. She said, his head was touching that level, which was pretty tall, where this exit sign was. And I said to her, would you recognize him if you ever saw him again? She said, I've been seeing him all day long. She said, he's got a presence that nobody could ever forget. He's got dark skin, he's got penetrating eyes. How could anybody ever not remember somebody like him? I showed her this drawing, she almost fainted. So that guide that appeared to my mother way back in the 1940s and stayed with her for pretty well all her life, was that purpose to basically also be with me, in grooming me, in what I basically have become and what I'm doing? It's very interesting for me to fully understand that, you see. Yeah, just to illustrate what I was saying to you about spiritual guides around a table. Yeah, this drawing is not a photograph, of course not. It's a drawing just to illustrate where a healer or a person who's doing energy work is interfacing with all these guides around the table. It's somewhat like here, that energy is coming through into that particular person. This is. Sorry?
Just hold that to the camera. And the other one?
Yep. Okay. Because on one of those occasions where that lady who did the meditation class, I said to her in the end, do you mind if I tape these audially with audio? Because so many profound, interesting things are being said to me. And I'm really, you know, like I'm sort of more into the healing here of what's happening, not what I want to pick up on, but the energy that's coming through me where I'm almost feels like I'm on drugs or something, because I'm spaced out, very, very spaced out when I work on people, an altered state even for myself. And I think it'd be very valuable for me to hear what this guide is saying to me. And she said, oh, definitely. And I think we had about 3 sessions where we did that. And on one occasion, the first thing the guide said to me was 12,000. And I said, excuse me, 12,000? 12,000 what? There are 12,000 spiritual entities in this room right now with us. And I laughed because the room was very small. And I said, 12,000 entities. You know, I'm imagining, you know, they're human people, like bodies, like us. 12,000, can you imagine getting 12,000 in this room? And I thought that was very funny. And that's when the guy said to me, David, there are no such things as walls and ceilings. And I said, well, why so many? Is that normal? Is that typical? And that guide said, any type of healing work, energy work, is drawing an incredible amount of interest in the universe. And so there can be spiritual presence here in the matter of a split second. And not only that, there can be what they call psychic surgeons. Psychic surgeons meaning that, let's say for argument's sake, somebody did have cancer. I wouldn't know that because I said I haven't asked that person. Then there can actually be, when my hands are in a particular position where, say, that cancer is, if it's the universe's will that that woman is meant to be healed or helped, then that particular psychic energy or the spiritual energy of that guide, psychic surgeon, will be there to administer that as quick as that. As quick as that. And so I said, does it mean they're all good guides though? Because I mean, here we go again. Anything in life, existence, there's an opposite to everything. And no, there can be not such good guides present as well. Yes. But a lot of them, they are interested to watch. But that's why they advised me at that time, always, always, always to bring white light around myself. That's God's light. And also around the client, which I do, and I have done, ever since I was told to do that. And so the client is totally protected, and I am protected. Not only from spiritual presence that it doesn't work in God's light, but the darker side of life, but also the fact is that I don't take the energy on of that client. And you can imagine again after 24 years of how much energy I would have taken on had I not done that. So that basically is like an overview really of this work. I say it's the most amazing work. I told you I work for Xerox of Canada. When I left Xerox, I certainly am not earning a fraction of the money I ever earned, but I've never been happier in my life. It does remind me very, very much of Mr. Elbows, where he didn't take money. And for many years when I first started doing light and sound healing, I remembered Mr. Elbows, and I never took a penny from anybody. And people used to say, but we want to pay you money, David. You've given us service. We feel that we want to pay you, and I'd always turn them away. And only toward the end of working for Xerox, where I realized that I had to supplement that with another income, did I start charging. But even at that time, I started off just like Mr. Elbows did. I had my little box in the hall of my home with the same sign. You give whatever you can afford. And even today, yes, I charge to do my service, but everybody has said to me, you give far more than you ever receive back, David. You really do. I time only as a guide, as a yardstick. If a client is on the table, I don't wait for a little bell to ring to say, okay, that's the end of your session. I sometimes, believe it or not, cannot take my hands off of a person if they're not meant to be taken off. It's like somebody put a big lead weight on top of my hands, pushing it down onto the body. I can't pull it away. And other times my hands will be thrown off the client. So it's just a yardstick. If somebody says, well, I'd like a half an hour session with you, or 3/4 an hour, it's purely a guide. But if they're on there longer than that, then so be it. I'll wrap it up with one last thing about that. There was a lady, I'll never forget this, a lady got on the table, she, like everybody else, bang, she's gone, she's out. And at the end of her session, she said to me, that was beautiful, that was amazing. She said, but I'm disappointed in one thing. I said, oh, what is that? I thought while I was laying there that I would soul travel. I thought, wow, I'd be here, there, and everywhere, but I know everything you did. I didn't go anywhere. And I'm really disappointed. And I thought to myself, this woman has been laying on the table the whole length of her session, and she hasn't moved her head, anything, a finger, her toes, nothing. How could somebody lay there and basically know everything that's going on? So I questioned her and I said, well, okay, seeing as you know everything that went on, please tell me, what happened here today? And of course, everything that she homed in on was accurate, absolutely. Because the soul is coming and going constantly during that session. And it comes back to say, oh yeah, everything's going on fine here, and monitoring the body, and off it goes again. And what people will actually do is they will link the times that they come back to the experience. It's somewhat the same as when we dream. We only dream really the latter part before we wake up. So what has happened to all those hours of unconsciousness that we have no memory about, you see? And I tried to explain that, but she still somewhat wouldn't buy that. No, 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 no. Anyway, she went to get up, and she said, oh my God, she said, why is this pillowcase soaking wet? And I said, well, you would know why it's soaking wet. You were here all the time. No, I don't know why it's soaking wet. Why? I said, because you were crying for 10 solid minutes. She looked at me, and she said to me, I have never cried in my life. I don't cry. And even if I could, the last place I would want to is in a public place like this. And I said, well then, I don't know how you can explain teardrops on the pillow like this. I said, how long do you think you're on this table? Oh, she said, that's easy. 20 minutes. I said, really? I said, you were very good. I said, you were actually on the table for 20 minutes. But I'd like you to put an hour also in front of it. She said, you're telling me that I was on that table for an hour and 20 minutes? I said, absolutely. I don't believe that. I said, well, you know what time you got up. I said, here's a clock. Let me just show you. That just blew her mind. But it just illustrates really what does happen. And to wrap that up, let me say this to you. When people don't cry, when people bury emotional things inside their bodies, they are creating a major problem. And one day it'll be like a straw that breaks the camel's back. And that person will snap in many different ways. I will say that talk. Whatever bothers you, troubles you, speak it. Say how you feel. It doesn't really matter whether it changes a scenario in your life. The very fact that you have let it go, you've done an amazing thing for yourself. You are the most important, you individually, every one of you. I want you to understand something here. You must love yourself and cherish yourself above anything. You really must. Because your minds it doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is imaginary. Absolutely it doesn't. And that's why when we imagine all this anger and guilt and blame, our bodies will go right along with it also. And if we want to drop it, we have that capability to do it. So talk it. Always, always speak how you feel. Otherwise you start blocking your throat chakra. That has everything to do with communication. You're all good talkers, I'm sure, amongst the boys and the girls. But when things are troubling you, get it out. Speak it out. Another one is tears. Hey, I was working in Windsor, and I'm sure one of the Detroit Lions was on my table. This big color guy, I mean, his shoulders, like, I thought, my God. I mean, I'm working on him like this. This man was so big. And he was absolutely bottled up with emotional junk in his body. And I said to him, you know something? You need to cry. I thought he was going to get off the table and absolutely flatten me. Hey man, I'm a big macho football player. You know something? I said, I don't care what you are. I said, if you don't, you're headed for trouble. You're absolutely heading for trouble. So talk it, cry it, and laugh it. Have you ever noticed that when you watch funny things, funny movies, comedies, have you ever noticed you don't have a care in the world? I can watch the same stupid movie. Oh, I've got some of my favorites, like we all do. Movies, you have your favorites. And I know the punchline, and I know the scene that's coming up, and I don't care. I'll laugh my head off as if I've never seen that movie. And I feel incredible within myself.